Hey, this is your boy Yusuke. I just wanted to comment on the Department of Justice's report on Ferguson and the activities of their law enforcement agencies. Um, I found Eric Holder's press conference interesting, not for necessarily what was put out in the report, because a lot of the things that were gone over are fairly obvious if you've ever been stopped by law enforcement in modern society. But I found it interesting to see what recommendations on policy changes or anything that the Department of Justice could do to implement change. And in that regard, I found his press conference lacking. I didn't see anything that would lead to change. I didn't see anything that would be more widespread than what took place in Ferguson. Now, that could be due to the fact that this is only an investigation into that police department by itself, but I did find it less than stellar. Uh, Law enforcement agencies have been drunk on their power for a very long time. I've experienced this firsthand on numerous occasions. I remember one instance. I was just waiting outside of a convenience store for my now wife, but then girlfriend, to meet me there. She was riding with a friend. She was going to arrive later, so I was just hanging out waiting. I had been in this convenience store previously, about 5 minutes before, bought me a drink so I could just hang out and wait. I went back to my car, sat in it, and about 10 minutes later, they showed up, and then we proceeded to swap cars and depart. Well, apparently the store owner was incensed by the fact that I was sitting outside, even though I had just went in and purchased a product from him. So he called law enforcement, who happened to be nearby because the jail isn't far from where this convenience store is located. So anyway, as I'm pulling out, they're pulling in. I don't know they're there for me. I just think they're pulling in. So I'm going out, and then as I casually go down the highway, I turn around and I see lights and sirens. So we're at a juncture in this highway where there's really nowhere to pull over immediately without being in traffic. So I continue down the road for about half a mile to where I can find some um, pavement to where I can pull off safely, and I do so. A couple minutes later, they approach the car with their weapons drawn, and they asked me, "What am I doing, and why was I running from law enforcement?" And I clearly said I wasn't running. I just came further down because I couldn't see a place to pull over where we were. So they were fine with that, but they asked me to step out of the vehicle. I did so. Patted me down, even though they had no reason to suspect I had anything of contraband or weapon. They then proceeded to ask for the driver's license of my girlfriend to run her name for whatever reason, because she wasn't implicated in any crime or instance, but they did that. And they also took mine, and we were sitting there waiting. I then dropped my cell phone on the ground, so I politely wait till the officer comes over, and then I let him know that my cell phone fell down and I need to get it. And he's like, "Don't you dare reach under that seat. That could be anything under there. I don't know that." And I'm like, "Sir, I promise you it's just my cell phone. I just dropped it." They would not let me retrieve my cell phone. So this goes on for a few more minutes. They run both our names. They find out that she has a warrant out from an ancient truancy ticket she received when she was a minor. But then they proceed to handcuff her and take her in on that charge. And they didn't have anything on me. My record was clean. I had insurance, I had everything. All my paperwork was cool. So they couldn't do anything to me. So then what they proceeded to do was demand that they to search my vehicle because they claimed they smelled marijuana. This was ridiculous. I had not smoked in the car at the time, and they had no reason to suspect I did smoke at the time, so I didn't know why the search was warranted. But being a black man living in Texas, I'm smart enough to understand that refusing search on law enforcement will lead to even worse consequences for me, even though it's within my rights to do so. So I went ahead and let them search the vehicle. And when they proceeded to find nothing, they gave me a callous, harsh remark about how I shouldn't be hanging out in front of convenience stores, even though I was just waiting for someone and I saw plenty of other people doing the exact same thing. And they let me continue on my way, even though they did lock my girlfriend up that night, and I had to scramble to get bail money to get her out. And all this simply because a convenience store owner who saw me purchase a product from the store saw me sitting outside. They didn't take time to assess the situation. They didn't take time to uh, talk to the convenience store owner about the situation at all beforehand. They just immediately jumped to the conclusion that I was a threat and immediately started to violate my rights in regards to that matter. And I felt it completely unfair. And that's just one instance I've been through. Every single time I've ever been pulled over out here, whether it's by one cop or by two, usually what follows next is another squad car arrives, and then there's 4 cops or 5. And I don't understand why every single time I get pulled over, I need to have a group of officers surround me, even though in the majority of the time it doesn't even result in a ticket. I've had my fair share of tickets, and I have been arrested on tickets before. And that experience was largely similar. I complied with all their orders, but again, 6 cops had to hem me down and push me up against the trunk of the car and put my face in the trunk and handcuff me and throw me down and all this. And I don't understand why that has to take place on routine traffic stops. It doesn't make any sense to me. So while this isn't an indictment of all police officers, I feel like the majority of law enforcement needs to seriously reevaluate how they interact with the public, how they go about doing their jobs with the public, because at the end of the day, you're here because you're here to serve the public. You're not supposed to become drunk on your power and feel like it's a power trip and that your rule is to be obeyed no matter what. No, you have protocols and things you need to follow as well. And if you don't adhere to those, there should be consequences. Now, as we see time and time again in the media, there's never consequences for anything any police officer does because they can get away with literally murder. We saw this in a couple instances in our recent history. So I just wanted to comment on that. I wanted to say that while I did find the report interesting, and I do find all the findings telling, this is only a symptom of a larger socioeconomic issue we have going on in society. And it needs to change. I don't know what can be done. I suggest more rigorous training and diversity programs for police officers. I suggest finding more police officers from diverse backgrounds in order to interact with communities so they more represent those communities and they can more see where they're coming from, where as far as culture and the things they like to do or how they dress or whatever style they are. So there's not these immediate suspicions and stereotypes that take over your mind and leads to these tragic incidences. And for the part of the citizenry, I just would like to say to you guys, remain safe. Make sure you comply with all orders law enforcement gives you, no matter how unlawful you feel they are, because at the end of the day, they have all the power and control in that situation. And you raising a fuss is only going to make things worse. I do recommend that if you have anybody with you to tell them to start recording the incidences. Dash cams, I think, will become more and more popular with the American populace as this goes on, because you have to have your own footage. You can't rely on the police officer footage, as you can see, because they always come up with a story about how the camera was off or how it was disabled or how it wasn't working. So you can't rely on their footage. You got to make sure you're taking your own footage, but make sure you do it discreetly, because that's also another instance that will incite the violence of police officers. So just remain safe out there, and I'll see you next time.